beautiful people, welcome to Bree Talks Books. I'm Bree, and you already know I'm here to talk about books. So let's go. In today's video, I'm going to be going over all of my reading plans for the month of November. So consider this my November TBR. Now, disclaimer, first of all, I am a mood reader, so I already know that I might not get to all of these books and I might completely change this, but I like to plan out my reading regardless, even though I know that it could totally change and be completely different because my mood might change up and maybe I'm not feeling these books. But it's still really helpful for me to kind of put together a list of books that I would like to get to, and I notice that I read more when I try to plan out my reading as best I can, even if I don't actually stick to that plan. We'll just see how this goes. I have really high hopes though, because so far I've already started a couple of these books and I'm just really enjoying them. So without any further ado, let's just get into it. So the first book that I briefly want to mention is Blood and Honey by Shelby Mahurin. So I've actually already have finished this book. I completed it yesterday. This was my book that I carried over from October. So I read the last like 200 pages or so this month. My thoughts on this I will be sharing in my wrap up, but if you don't know, this is the sequel to Serpent and Dove, which follows Lou. She's a witch, she's on the run and has escaped her coven and things, and she's in hiding. She ends up getting entangled with Reed Diggory, and he is a Shasher, also known as a witch hunter in their world. So they end up having to be married, and it's like this angsty, steamy romance fantasy, but it's YA, but I consider it more new adult, and the sequel takes place pretty much picking up right in the action of where the first one left off. So more thoughts on this in my wrap up later, but I was able to read this. So far, we're already starting off strong with this TBR. The next book that I've also already started is The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang. So this book I am reading on audiobook. It is the sequel to The Poppy War. Since it's the sequel, I will just briefly go over what the first one is. So The Poppy War is an adult fantasy. It is inspired by mid-century China. It has like a lot of historical context because it's based on the Sino-Japanese and the Opium Wars. So lots of historical context, political intrigue, lots of trigger warnings, so make sure to look up trigger warnings for violence and rape and just overall brutality and things like that. Definitely a grimdark fantasy story, and the second one so far has not disappointed, but definitely carries on similar themes. I don't know how she keeps like raising the stakes and like going to like another level each time, but here we are and it's amazing. So we're following Rin, and she's a peasant orphan, and she ends up getting into this elite military academy. While she's training and doing all of that, she discovers her powers, which the magic system, it's a little bit complex. I don't want to get into it because of spoilers, but basically it's based on shamanism, and the third book comes out later this month, so hopefully I can read The Dragon Republic. I don't know if I'll be picking up Burning God this month, but we'll see. I have a lot of big books on my TBR. I forgot to mention, these are all like really big like fantasy books. So we'll just kind of see how this goes, but that's what I was in the mood for November. So yeah. The next three books that I'm going to talk about, I have actually already started earlier this year and better pick them up now so that I can read them before the end of 2020. So that's what I'm doing. So first we have A Song of Wraiths and Ruin by Rosanne A. Brown. And this is a YA fantasy story. It's dual perspective following, let me look. Okay, so it follows Karina, she's the heir to the throne, and then it also follows Malik, and he's like a peasant. Malik enters into this competition in order to save his sister, and in order to do that, he has to assassinate the Princess Karina, and Karina has to kill the person whoever wins the competition. So it's a competition story, and like I've heard it's a hate to love type of romance situation, so I was intrigued by it. I did read, I have a bookmark in here still. Okay, I read to page 67. I'm probably gonna have to restart this from the beginning because obviously I have forgotten a lot. I couldn't even remember their names because I started this over the summer. And yeah, so I'm probably gonna have to like do a little bit of a refresher with this one, but I really wanna read this because this was one of my most anticipated books of the year. I'm still super hyped for it. So gonna read this this month. All right, and the next book is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Leigh Bardugo is another one of my most favorite authors. She wrote Six of Crows. I'm obsessed with Six of Crows. I mention Six of Crows as much as I can pretty much in every video, so y'all probably already tired of hearing of it, but I digress. This is her adult fantasy novel, and it's her first adult fantasy novel, and this is going to be, I don't know how many books are in this series, but this is going to be like a long series, so I can't wait. This one I do remember what's happening, so, and which is funny because I picked this one back. I started this in like April or something. It was like near the beginning, or like maybe March. It was like during the beginning of the pandemic, and then I ran into that massive reading slump for like majority of 2020 because there was a pandemic and, you know, anxiety and things. But now I am ready to read this book. This is a dark academia setting, following our main character, Alex. It's also told in dual perspective as well, and in like dual timeline. I didn't read the synopsis, and I'm not going to because I don't like knowing a lot going into books. And it's one thing if I'm not planning to read the book for a while, but seeing that I'm gonna read this one this month, I definitely don't wanna read the synopsis because sometimes they have spoilers in my opinion, or they just give me too much information. So from what I can remember, this is set at Yale. There's like all these secret societies, and the Ninth House is a group that basically keeps all these secret societies in check because the societies dabble into like paranormal type of stuff and all these like rituals and things like that. So this is really dark, lots of trigger warnings. So far, I think like the beginning started off kind of slow, which is also probably why I put it down, but I'm on page 114 in this one. And with Leigh Bardugo, I will say that she does a really good job with her like world building and getting kind of like, she does a lot of like character work. So usually like the first 100 pages of her books are slow for me. They're also like my favorites. So that hasn't discouraged me from this one. It just took me a little bit to get through the first part. So we'll see how this goes. I'm excited to pick this up really soon. All right, the next book that I've already started in 2020 and want to finish before it's over is Empire of Storms by Sarah J. Maas. So if you don't know, Sarah J. Maas is like, mwah, to me. I love her books. I am trash for her books, and I haven't finished Throne of Glass. What's wrong with me? Yeah, I read ACOTAR, her trilogy, a few years ago, was obsessed, and then I started Throne of Glass finally, and I was doing really good in like, I think in like 2019, I was like trying to read one book from the series each month, and then I just kind of fell off when I got to this one, and it wasn't anything to do with this book. Like, I was loving it. I just picked up something else and forgot. And then I keep trying to go back to picking this one up, and I realized that I don't really remember what's going on. So this is another one that I'm gonna need to start over. And I even need to like look up some reviews of the previous book, because this is book either, well, it depends on how you count it. I think it's considered book number 5, but then there's like a prequel. It's the 6th book that I'm going to be reading in Throne of Glass. Oh, this is a YA fantasy, I should say. And following Selena, she's an assassin. I don't think I can say much else other, like, that's not gonna spoil it. So she's, you know, a trained killer and trying to, you know, overthrow corruption. We'll just leave it at that. And Sarah J. Maas's books have a lot of high fantasy. Oh, it's fae, like, so there's fairies always. Her books are just really easy to like digest and binge through. So want to pick this one up. I think I was like scared too because it's like 600 something pages or something. All of the books on my TBR are long. I don't know why I do this to myself. Okay, so the next couple books I want to read are in the same series. So I want to first reread the 5th season by N.K. Jemison. I want to reread this book. I read this earlier this year, and it's definitely in my top books for the year. It's like such a complex story that I want to reread it just to make sure that I didn't miss anything the first time, and I want to annotate it as I go. So hopefully I will be able to vlog myself doing that. And yeah, but this is an adult sci-fi fantasy, like dystopian type of series. It's like set in the future, like end of the world type of thing. The magic system's really cool. People can use seismic energy to like cause like earthquakes and things like that, natural disasters. So this 5th season has happened, which is supposed to be like the worst one. We're following 3 different perspectives in this book, and it's just like magical and amazing. I don't really know how else to put it. I loved it. It's really difficult to like describe this book, so just read it. And then I'm hoping to also pick up the Obelisk Gate, which is the second book in this trilogy, because seeing that I own the entire thing, I want to be able to pick up this one, and then hopefully the last book I can pick up in December. So we'll just see how that goes. I'm hoping that since this is a reread, maybe I'll get through it a little bit quicker and be able to dive right into this one, because I like reading series back to back, even though I'm not the best at doing that. I do prefer it. It's really fun to like just marathon a series and kind of see how all of the things connect. So that's what I'm gonna try to do. Wish me luck. Y'all thought I was done. Oh no, we still have 3 books to talk about. So this month I'm going to be participating in Tome Topple round, I think it's round 13. I'll put a link in the description box below to Sam from Thoughts on Tomes, her channel. She posted an announcement video for Tome Topple. It's a 2-week-long readathon starting on the November 14th, I believe, at 11:59, and then it goes through November 27th. There are a bunch of different prompts, and you don't have to follow like the prompts or like the challenges or whatever, but the premise is that you read tomes, so any books over 500 pages are going to count for it. But she does a really good job explaining in her video how it works. There's a Discord channel that you can join, and people are like discussing like the books and stuff that they're reading, different challenges and things like that. So these next 3 books are books that I definitely want to read. I was already planning to read them, and they all are over 500 pages. I haven't started them yet. The biggest challenge will definitely be trying to finish all of these books within like the readathon time frame, but seeing that they were already on my November TBR, like if I end up not being able to finish them during Tome Topple, I'll still have the last few days of the month to finish them for just my TBR in general. So I figured, why not try? So the first one is Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. This book came out earlier this year and I still have not read it. I was still reading the Dark Artifices trilogy, which came out before this one, so I was reading that this year, and I wanted to do that before jumping into this one. You do not have to, so if you aren't already aware, Cassandra Clare writes YA fantasy books that are all set in the Shadow Hunter universe, and they're urban fantasies following these different Shadow Hunters, and they kind of take place in different cities and things, depending on which series you're reading. So the first one, The Mortal Instruments, set in New York, and then the second one is The Infernal Devices, which is London, and that one is set in like the 19th century. This one follows The Infernal Devices. It's also going to be set in London, and it follows like the kids to the characters in Infernal Devices. So if anything, you have to read that trilogy first in order to not be spoiled for this one, because obviously once you figure out like who's the kids are, you're gonna know who like ended up together and things, and different characters are going to show up and whatnot. So read that trilogy first, then read this one. The Dark Artifices is like separate, so you technically wouldn't have to read it unless you're trying to read like all of them in order and like characters and things show up again. I think the biggest like controversy is whether or not to read The Mortal Instruments, because that was like her first series and it's a lot of people's like least favorite. I personally, I liked the first 3 books of the series, but the second part of the series, the last 3 books, I didn't particularly care for. That's all I can really say, and like some of y'all probably are gonna hate that and hate on me in the comments, but that's okay. I'm not like saying you can read them and you can enjoy them and you can love them. That's fine. I just didn't get a whole lot out of them. I didn't hate them. I could have went on to the rest of the series without reading them. You can read a summary and you'll be good. So with that, I'm really excited to read this one though, because like I said, I love the Infernal Devices, so I'm excited to be back in like the historical London setting and following these other characters, and plus this cover is so pretty. Very excited to start reading this. This isn't even my book either, so shout out to my friend Jess for letting me borrow this. I have to let her borrow my copies of The Infernal Devices because she needs to read that first. So that's that one, this big chunker I'm hoping to get through. It's like, oh, how long are you? Oh, you're not that bad. See, it's always interesting because page thickness in books makes a difference. This is the epilogue, hold on. I'm trying to only look at the page numbers because I will be so mad if I spoil myself. This is 582, and then this one was like 689. Look at the difference there. And this is the shorter book, but these are like Bible thin pages in this one. So almost done. Okay, so the next book I have, this is my most anticipated book of the year. I have set the bar so high for this book. I don't want to be disappointed. I'm reading, actually, this whole TBR is like all my most anticipated books of the year, actually. Why did I read them all in the same month? Okay, I'm really good at planning things. See, because I put off books that I know are gonna be good. Like when I think I'm gonna love it, I like put them off because I'm like, I'm not ready. Or like it'll make me hate everything, or it'll put me in a reading slump or whatever. And this month I was just like, you know, 2020 is almost over. If we're gonna do it, we better do it. So here we are. Here I am. So that book is House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. This is the first book in her Crescent City series, which is her adult urban fantasy series. So Sarah J. Maas gets a lot of like controversy because her previous series are considered YA. That being said, especially like as like the later books go on, like there's more mature content in them. This book, finally, we're getting an adult book from Sarah J. Maas, and I've heard other people say that there's not as much like smut or anything like that in this one as they thought. They were like surprised by that, but this is like darker as far as I know. I also know that it's an urban fantasy, which is different because her other previous series were both high fantasy and centered around like fae. Honestly, I don't know much else about this. I know that the main character's name is Bryce, and I didn't need to know anything about this because it's Sarah J. Maas and I was already going to read it. So we'll just kind of see how that goes. I'm going into this one pretty blind. Other people that I think that I have similar tastes to on BookTube have raved about this book and said that they really enjoyed it. So I'm gonna guess that I will be a part of that group. I know some people were disappointed by this, but I'm just gonna manifest that like that's not gonna be me. Okay, I'm gonna read this, I'm gonna love it, it's gonna be wonderful. I'm gonna be able to finish it during Tome Topple. Yeah, we're claiming it. Okay, and then the last book that I have to talk about, I'm like a little bit embarrassed that I have not read it, and all I do is talk about fantasy books on here, and you guys are gonna be like, oh my gosh, she's a fantasy fan and she has never read like this author, what? I'm finally doing it. I have owned this book for 2 years. I don't have an excuse for why I haven't read it, but I'm prioritizing it now and I'm gonna make it happen, okay? That is the first book in the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. So this is The Final Empire. That's the name of the first one, right? I'm the worst. It doesn't say. It just says Mistborn. Oh, The Final Empire, wow. There it is. All I know about this is that it's high fantasy, it's Brandon Sanderson. I know that all of his books take place in the same universe as well, the Cosmere, and this is a good entry point to start. So I'm gonna do that. I know that the magic system is based around like ingesting metals, and I know that like in this world, the bad guys won. That is literally all I can remember based on what people have talked about. So that's what I'm going off of, and I'm looking forward to reading this. I have very high expectations yet again, but based on what everyone says, and like I said, like other people that I know who have similar reading taste to me, I'm going to love this, so I'm not really worried about it. So yeah, I'm sure I will be talking about this in a vlog at some point. I'm looking forward to doing that. I don't know what else to say. I don't know. I can't really tell you about it. I haven't read it yet, and I won't look at the synopsis. So sorry, not sorry. All right, everybody, those are all the books that I have to talk about today. So I plan to read, I didn't even count these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The 10 books I'm hoping to read in November, the shortest one being like 450 pages. It's fine. I didn't think about that before planning this out. I just kind of was grabbing books that were calling to me, and all the big ones stood out. All the fantasy stood out. So I guess that's where we are. Wish me luck, please. I'm going to need it. All right, thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to. Also, let me know what you're reading. If any of these look interesting to you, or if you have read any of these, let me know what your thoughts were. If you want to buddy read them with me this month as well, let me know, because I definitely would be interested in having conversations with you all about what you're reading. If you want to participate in Tome Topple, make sure you check the link down below. Go check out the announcement video. There's a whole bunch of different hosts, so make sure you just subscribe to all their channels too, and we're just gonna have a good time reading this month. Whatever you're reading, I wish you luck on your books, and yeah, I'm rambling now. I'm just gonna get on off of here. Seeing that we're already a week into November, I need to get some more reading done, so I'm gonna go.